You are not lazy. I need you to hear that one more time. You, the person listening to this right now, you are not lazy. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, but you don't know me. You don't know how many mornings I have hit the snooze button. You don't know how many goals I have written down and never touched again. You don't know how many times I have told myself tomorrow and then watched tomorrow become next week, next month, next year. I hear you. I really do. And I still stand by what I said. You are not lazy. You are stuck. And there is a massive life-changing difference between those two things. Here is something that might shock you. In Japan, there is no real cultural equivalent to the word lazy the way we use it in the West. When someone is not performing, when someone is not moving forward, Japanese culture does not look at that person and say, they are lazy. Instead, they ask a completely different question. They ask, what is broken in their system? And that single shift in thinking, that one tiny change in perspective, has helped millions of people in Japan build lives of discipline, focus, and quiet power without relying on motivation, without waiting for the perfect moment, and without beating themselves up every single night for not being enough. Now, let me ask you something personal. Have you ever had a night where you lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, making incredible plans? You are going to wake up at 5 in the morning. You are going to work out. You are going to eat clean. You are going to read for an hour. You are going to finally start that project, that business, that habit you have been putting off for months. And in that moment, lying there in the dark, you genuinely believe it. You feel it in your bones. Tomorrow is going to be different. But then the alarm goes off, and something happens. Your body feels heavy. Your mind starts negotiating. Just 5 more minutes. Those 5 minutes become 15. 15 becomes 30. And before you know it, the sun is already high, your plans are already broken, and that familiar voice inside your head starts whispering again. See? You cannot change. You will always be like this. You are just lazy. If you have ever felt that, and I know you have because nearly every single person on this planet has felt it, then what you are about to hear over the next several chapters could genuinely reshape the way you see yourself, your habits, and your entire life. Because today, we are going deep into the Japanese approach to destroying laziness, not with harsh discipline, not with punishment, not with guilt, but with something far more powerful, understanding. Understanding how your mind actually works, understanding why you get stuck, and most importantly, understanding the small, almost embarrassingly simple techniques that Japanese culture has refined over centuries to keep people moving forward even when they do not feel like it. Let me tell you something about yourself that you probably do not realize. The fact that you are here right now, listening to this, means something. It means you have not given up. It means that somewhere deep inside you, underneath all the frustration and the self-doubt and the broken promises, there is still a part of you that believes things can be different. There is still a part of you that is reaching for something better, and that part of you, that stubborn, relentless, quietly hopeful part, that is not laziness. That is the opposite of laziness. That is courage. Now, I want to set some expectations before we dive in. This is not going to be one of those just hustle harder talks. If grinding yourself into the ground actually worked, you would already be where you want to be by now. You have tried willpower, you have tried motivation, you have watched the videos, read the quotes, maybe even bought the journals. And I am guessing that none of it has stuck for longer than a few weeks. That is not because you are weak. That is because those approaches are fighting against the way your brain is designed to operate. What you are about to learn is different. The Japanese methods we will explore today work with your brain, not against it. They do not require superhuman discipline. They do not require you to be a different person. They just require you to understand a few fundamental truths about how human beings actually change, and then use those truths to your advantage. Here is a quick preview of what we are going to cover, because I want you to know exactly what is coming, and I want you to stay for all of it, because every single chapter builds on the last one. First, we are going to talk about why Japanese culture views laziness completely differently than the rest of the world, and why their perspective might be the key you've been missing your entire life. Then, we are going to dive into something called Kaizen, the Japanese formula for continuous improvement that is so simple it almost feels like cheating. After that, we will explore the 5-minute rule, a psychological trick that Japanese people use to outsmart their own brains and eliminate procrastination almost instantly. Then, we are going to talk about Ikigai, which is the Japanese concept of purpose, and why finding your why is more important than any goal you will ever set. Next, we will tackle the Anti-Laziness Challenge, a practical day-by-day system for building habits that actually last, not for a week, not for a month, but for life. And finally, we will explore the Zanshin Mindset, the Japanese art of total focus and presence that separates the people who just dream about success from the people who actually achieve it. Each one of these concepts is powerful on its own, but together they form a complete system, a framework that Japanese people have used for generations to live with intention, discipline, and an inner peace that most of us can only dream of. Now, before we begin, I want to talk directly to a specific version of you, not the version that is confident and motivated. That version does not need this. I want to talk to the version of you that is tired, the version that has tried and failed so many times that failure feels like your default setting, the version that scrolls through social media at 2 in the morning, watching other people build the life you want, wondering what they have that you do not. I see you, and I want you to know something. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not as wide as it feels right now. It is not a canyon. It is a crack in the sidewalk. And the Japanese methods you are about to learn are going to show you exactly how to step across it. You know what the biggest lie about laziness is? It is that lazy people do not want anything. That is completely untrue. Some of the most lazy people I have ever met are also the most ambitious. They have massive dreams. They have vivid visions of the life they want. The problem was never a lack of desire. The problem was never a lack of intelligence or talent. The problem was always the same thing. They did not have a system. Think about it like this. Imagine you are standing in a completely dark room. You cannot see the walls. You cannot see the door. You cannot see the floor beneath your feet. What are you going to do? You are going to stand still. You are going to freeze. Not because you are lazy, not because you do not want to move, but because you genuinely do not know which direction to go. Now imagine someone turns on a small light, just a tiny flickering candle, in the corner of the room. Suddenly, you can see. Suddenly, you know where to step. And without anyone pushing you, without anyone motivating you, without anyone giving you a speech, you start moving. That is what a system does. It turns on the light. It shows you the next step. And once you can see the next step, you do not need motivation. You do not need willpower. You just need to walk. The Japanese understood this centuries ago. While the rest of the world was obsessed with motivation, with finding that magical feeling of inspiration that would carry them through the hard days, the Japanese were building systems. Quiet, small, almost invisible systems that made discipline automatic and made laziness nearly impossible. And here is the beautiful part. These systems are not complicated. They do not require you to wake up at 4 in the morning. They do not require you to give up everything you enjoy. They do not require you to become some sort of monk living on a mountain. They just require you to understand a few simple principles and apply them consistently. That is it. That is the entire secret. I know what some of you are thinking right now. This sounds too good to be true. And honestly, I get that. After years of trying different methods, different apps, different routines, and having them all fall apart, skepticism is natural. It is healthy even. But I am going to ask you to do something. I am going to ask you to give yourself this one chance. Just this one. Stay with me through all the chapters. Actually try the things we talk about. Not tomorrow, not next Monday, but today. And if at the end of all this you feel exactly the same way you feel right now, then at the very least you will understand yourself better than you did before. And understanding yourself, truly understanding why you do what you do, is never wasted time. There is an old Japanese saying that has stayed with me for years. Fall 7 times, stand up 8. But here is what most people miss about that quote. It is not about strength. It is not about toughness. It is about the decision to stand back up. That decision, that small, quiet, internal decision, is not made by motivated people. It is made by people who have a reason to stand. And over the course of this audiobook, we are going to help you find yours. So right now, wherever you are, sitting on a bus, lying in bed, walking down the street, taking a break at work, I want you to take one deep breath. Just one. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And as you exhale, I want you to let go of one thing, the belief that you are lazy. Let it go, because from this moment forward, we are replacing that belief with something far more accurate, far more useful, and far more kind. You are not lazy. You are just ready for a better system, and that system starts right now. Welcome to the Japanese Anti-Laziness Formula. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Why Japanese people hate laziness. Let me paint a picture for you. It is 6:30 in the morning. Your alarm is screaming. Your eyes are barely open. And the first battle of the day has already begun. Not between you and the world, but between you and your own blanket. Your bed is warm. Your pillow is perfectly molded to the shape of your head, and your brain, that clever little negotiator, is already whispering, "You deserve rest. You worked hard yesterday. Just 10 more minutes. The world can wait." And so you hit snooze. 10 minutes become 20. 20 become 40. And by the time you finally drag yourself upright, half the morning is already gone, your plans are already derailed, and that old familiar guilt is sitting on your chest like a stone. Now, here is the thing. If this has ever happened to you, and I know it has, because it happens to nearly every human being on earth, you probably called yourself lazy afterward. You probably looked in the mirror and thought, "What is wrong with me? Why can I not just get up and do what I am supposed to do?" But what if I told you that the problem was never laziness? What if I told you that the Japanese, one of the most disciplined, productive, and resilient cultures on the planet, would look at your situation and say something completely unexpected? They would not call you lazy. They would say your system is broken. Let me explain what that means, because this distinction might be the most important thing you hear today. In Western culture, we have been trained to see laziness as a character flaw, something deep inside you that is fundamentally broken. He is just lazy. She has no discipline. They do not want it bad enough. We treat laziness like it is a disease of the soul, something you are born with, something you cannot escape, something that defines who you are. But Japanese culture sees it entirely differently. In Japan, when someone is not performing, when someone is stuck, when someone cannot seem to get themselves moving, the first question is not, "What is wrong with this person?" The first question is, what is wrong with their environment? What is wrong with their routine? What is wrong with their system? Do you see how radically different that is? One approach blames you. The other approach looks for the real problem. One approach crushes your self-esteem. The other approach gives you something you can actually fix. Think about it this way. Imagine your phone stops working. The screen freezes. The apps crash. Nothing responds. Now, you would not look at that phone and say, "This phone is just lazy. It does not want to work." That would be ridiculous. You would say, "Something in the operating system needs to be updated. Something in the software is glitched. Something needs to be restarted." You would look for the system error, not a character flaw. Your brain works exactly the same way. When you cannot get yourself to start a task, when you keep putting things off, when you feel paralyzed by the weight of everything you need to do, that is not a character flaw. That is a system error. And system errors can be fixed. This is the first lesson Japan teaches us. Stop attacking yourself and start examining your systems. Because you have spent years calling yourself lazy, and has it helped? Has beating yourself up every night made you more productive the next morning? Has the guilt, the shame, the self-criticism, has any of it actually moved the needle? I am willing to bet it has not. In fact, I am willing to bet it has made things worse. Because the more you tell yourself you are lazy, the more you start to believe it. And the more you believe it, the less you try. And the less you try, the more evidence you create to support the belief. It is a vicious cycle, and Japanese culture breaks it by refusing to enter the cycle in the first place. Now, let me share something with you that Japanese teachers have understood for generations. There is a critical difference between laziness and a lack of direction. They look identical from the outside, but they are completely different problems with completely different solutions. Imagine you are standing at a crossroads. There are 7 different paths in front of you. You do not know which one leads where. You do not know which one is safe. You do not know which one will take you closer to where you want to go. So what do? You stand still. You wait. You hesitate. And to anyone watching from a distance, you look like someone who does not want to move. But the truth is, you desperately want to move. You just do not know which direction to go. That is what most people call laziness. It is not laziness at all. It is confusion. It is overwhelm. It is the paralysis that comes from having too many options and not enough clarity. And the Japanese solution is not to push harder, not to shame yourself into action, but to simplify, to remove the noise, to narrow the 7 paths down to one, because once you can see one clear path in front of you, something remarkable happens. You start walking without anyone telling you to. Let me ask you a personal question. When was the last time you felt truly excited about something? Not forced excitement, not I should be excited about this excitement, but genuine cannot sleep because you are so pumped excitement. Maybe it was a trip you were planning. Maybe it was a new relationship. Maybe it was a project that genuinely lit you up inside. Now think about how you behaved during that time. Did you need an alarm to wake up? Did you need a motivational speech to get going? Did you need someone standing over your shoulder telling you to work harder? Probably not. You just did it, naturally, effortlessly, almost without thinking. So what changed? Were you a different person then? Did your DNA rearrange itself? Did you suddenly develop a new work ethic that magically disappeared afterward? Of course not. The only thing that changed was your clarity. You knew exactly what you wanted, exactly why you wanted it, and exactly what the next step was. And when those 3 things align, laziness does not stand a chance. This is what Japanese culture means when they say the problem is never the person. The problem is always the system. When your system gives you clarity, direction, and manageable next steps, you move. When your system gives you confusion, overwhelm, and impossibly large goals, you freeze. It is that simple. Now, there is another piece to this puzzle that I think is incredibly important, and it has to do with the difference between rest and laziness. Because in our culture, we have somehow managed to confuse the two, and that confusion is costing us dearly. Rest is sacred. Rest is necessary. Rest is what allows your body to recover, your mind to reset, and your spirit to recharge. Without rest, you break down. You burn out. You become a shell of the person you are capable of being. Japanese culture deeply respects rest. In fact, many Japanese practices, tea ceremonies, forest bathing, quiet meditation, are built entirely around the concept of intentional rest. But laziness is something completely different. Laziness is not rest. Laziness is avoidance disguised as rest. It is lying on the couch for 4 hours, scrolling through your phone, not because your body needs recovery, but because your mind is avoiding something it does not want to face. It is binge-watching an entire season of a show you do not even enjoy, not because you need entertainment, but because the alternative, sitting with your thoughts, facing your goals, doing the hard thing, feels too uncomfortable. You know the difference. Deep down, you always know the difference. After genuine rest, you feel refreshed. You feel lighter. You feel ready. After laziness, you feel worse. You feel heavier. You feel that specific kind of guilt that comes from knowing you just traded hours of your life for absolutely nothing. Japanese culture teaches us to be honest about which one we are choosing. not to judge ourselves for it, just to be honest. Because honesty is the first step toward building a system that gives you enough real rest that you do not need to escape into false rest. Here is something else I want you to consider. The most disciplined people in the world, the people you admire, the people who seem to have it all figured out, the people who wake up early and work hard and somehow never seem to lose their drive. They are not more motivated than you. I need you to understand this because it changes everything. They are not built differently. They do not have some secret reserve of willpower that you lack. They do not wake up every morning bursting with energy and enthusiasm. The difference is this. They have built systems that make discipline automatic. They have structured their lives, their environments, their routines, and their habits in such a way that doing the right thing is easier than doing the wrong thing. They have removed friction from the behaviors they want and added friction to the behaviors they do not want. And over time, what looks like extraordinary willpower from the outside is actually just a well-designed system on the inside. Think about brushing your teeth. You do it every morning without thinking. You do not need motivation. You do not need a pep talk. You do not need to watch a video about the importance of dental hygiene. You just do it. Why? Because it is built into your system. It is a habit so deeply embedded in your routine that skipping it would actually feel stranger than doing it. Now imagine if your most important daily habits felt that way. Imagine if working on your goals, exercising, reading, learning. Imagine if all of those things felt as automatic as brushing your teeth. That is what a good system does. And that is exactly what the Japanese methods we are going to explore in the following chapters are designed to create. But before we get there, I want to leave you with one more thought from this chapter. The next time you catch yourself saying, "I am so lazy," I want you to stop. I want you to pause. And I want you to replace that sentence with a question. What part of my system is broken right now? Maybe you are tired because you have been sleeping poorly. That is a system problem. Your sleep routine needs adjustment. Maybe you are overwhelmed because you have too many goals and no clear priorities. That is a system problem. Your planning process needs simplification. Maybe you are avoiding a task because it feels too big and you do not know where to start. That is a system problem. You need to break it down into smaller pieces. In every single case, the answer is not try harder. The answer is build better. Build a better morning. Build a better routine. Build a better environment. Build a better system. Because the Japanese have known this for centuries. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. Some days it rains, some days the sun shines, and you have absolutely no control over it. But a system is like a well-built house. It stands no matter what the weather does. It protects you on the hard days. It keeps you moving when everything inside you wants to stop. And the most beautiful part? You do not have to build a whole house today. You just have to lay the first brick. And in the next chapter, we are going to talk about exactly how to do that, using the Japanese formula so simple and so powerful that it has transformed the lives of millions of people across the globe. It is called Kaizen. And once you understand it, you will never look at your goals the same way again. Chapter 2. The Kaizen Formula. Let me guess something about you. At some point in your life, maybe last month, maybe last year, maybe even last night, you made a decision, a big one. You sat down, looked at your life, and said, "That is it. Everything changes starting tomorrow." Maybe you decided you were going to wake up at 5 every morning. Maybe you decided you were going to work out for an hour every single day. Maybe you decided you were going to quit junk food cold turkey, read 50 books this year, meditate for 30 minutes before breakfast, learn a new language, and finally organize every single corner of your life. And in that moment, it felt real. It felt powerful. You could practically see the new version of yourself, sharper, stronger, more disciplined, more focused. You could see that person so clearly that you almost believed you had already become them. Then morning came. The alarm went off, and your body felt like it was filled with wet cement. Your brain immediately started its negotiation tactics. We do not have to do everything today. Let us start on Monday. Monday is a better day for new beginnings anyway. And just like that, all those beautiful plans, every single one of them, slid off the table and landed quietly on the floor, where they joined all the other abandoned resolutions from all the other ambitious nights. Now, here is what I want you to understand. That is not a failure of character. That is not proof that you are weak or broken or incapable of change. That is a completely predictable result of a completely flawed strategy. You tried to change everything at once, and your brain, the most sophisticated survival machine on the planet, said absolutely not. And this is exactly where the Japanese concept of Kaizen becomes the most important idea you will ever encounter. Kaizen is a Japanese word that translates roughly to continuous improvement. But that translation does not capture the real beauty of it. Kaizen is not about improving quickly. It is not about dramatic transformations or overnight success stories. Kaizen is about improving so slowly, so gently, so quietly, that your brain does not even realize change is happening until it has already happened. Let me explain why this matters, because it has everything to do with how your brain is wired. Your brain has one primary job, and that job is not to make you successful. It is not to make you happy. It is not to help you achieve your dreams. Your brain's primary job is to keep you alive. That is it. And from your brain's perspective, alive means safe. And safe means familiar. And familiar means exactly what you're doing right now. No changes, no risks, no surprises. So when you announce to yourself that you are going to completely overhaul your entire life starting tomorrow, your brain treats that announcement exactly the same way it would treat a fire alarm. It panics, it hits the brakes, it floods your body with resistance, fatigue, doubt, and a sudden overwhelming desire to lie down and watch something comforting on your phone. Your brain is not trying to sabotage you. It is trying to protect you. It just cannot tell the difference between a dangerous change and a beneficial one. This is the secret that Kaizen unlocks. Instead of triggering your brain's alarm system with massive, terrifying goals, you slip underneath it. You make the change so small, so ridiculously tiny, that your brain does not even register it as a threat. And because it does not register as a threat, there is no resistance, no internal battle, no willpower required. You just do it. Let me give you a real example of what this looks like in practice. Say you want to start reading more. The traditional approach would be something like, I am going to read for 1 hour every day. Sounds great on paper. But what happens on day 3 when you are exhausted after work, your eyes are heavy, and there is a new episode of your favorite show calling your name? You skip the reading. Then you skip it again the next day. And by the end of the week, the habit is dead and you are back to calling yourself a failure. Now here is the Kaizen approach. Instead of 1 hour, you commit to reading one single page. That is it. One page, not one chapter, not 30 minutes, one page. You could do it in 60 seconds. You could do it standing in line at the grocery store. You could do it sitting on the toilet. There is literally no scenario in your life where you cannot read one page. And here is what happens. On most days, you will read more than one page. Because once you start, once you open the book and read that first paragraph, something shifts inside you. The momentum kicks in, the resistance fades, and before you know it, you have read 5 pages, 10 pages, maybe even an entire chapter. Not because you forced yourself, but because the hardest part was always just starting. That is Kaizen. That is the entire formula. Make the start so small that it is impossible to say no. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. 1 page? That is nothing. That will never add up to anything meaningful. And I understand why you feel that way. We live in a culture that worships speed. We want overnight transformations. We want the before and after photo in 30 days. We want the montage, that scene in the movie where the music swells and the hero goes from 0 to champion in 3 minutes of screen time. But real life does not work like a montage. Real life works like a garden. Think about a farmer for a moment. A farmer does not plant a seed on Monday and then stand over it on Tuesday yelling, "Why are you not a tree yet?" A farmer plants the seed, waters it a little every day, makes sure it gets enough sunlight, and then trusts the process. The farmer knows that growth is happening even when it is invisible. The farmer knows that the magic is not in any single day of watering. It is in the consistency. It is in the showing up day after day, doing the small thing, trusting that the small thing matters even when you cannot see the results yet. You need to treat your habits the same way. You need to become the farmer of your own life. Plant the small seed, water it daily, and trust that something is growing even when you cannot see it. Here is a truth that most people never consider. 1 page a day is 365 pages a year. That is roughly 5 to 7 books. 5 to 7 books more than most people read in an entire year. All from a commitment so small that it takes less time than brushing your teeth. 5 minutes of exercise a day is over 30 hours of movement a year. That is 30 hours more than the person who keeps waiting for the right time to start a full workout program. 2 minutes of meditation a day is over 12 hours of mental training a year. 12 hours of teaching your brain to be calmer, more focused, more present. Small does not mean insignificant. Small means sustainable. Small means something you can actually keep doing when life gets hard, when motivation disappears, when everything around you falls apart. And sustainability is the only thing that matters, because the best habit in the world is worthless if you quit after 2 weeks. Let me tell you about a trap that many ambitious people fall into. I call it the all-or-nothing trap, and it might be the single biggest reason people stay stuck. The all-or-nothing trap works like this. You set a goal. Say, working out for an hour every day. On Monday, you do it. On Tuesday, you do it. On Wednesday, you only have 30 minutes. And because 30 minutes is not an hour, because it is not the full thing, you skip it entirely. You tell yourself, I will just do a full session tomorrow. But tomorrow comes with its own complications, and before you know it, the habit is broken. Do you see what happened there? You did not fail because you were lazy. You failed because your standard was so high that anything less than perfection felt like failure. And when the only options are perfection or nothing, most people choose nothing. Kaizen eliminates this trap completely. When your daily commitment is 1 page, 5 minutes, a single push-up, there is no not enough. There is no less than perfect. You either did it or you did not. And doing it takes so little effort that not doing it would almost be harder than doing it. I want to talk about something else that Kaizen addresses, and it is something that silently destroys more dreams than laziness ever could. I am talking about overthinking. You are an overthinker. I know you are because almost everyone listening to something like this is an overthinker. You do not just think about doing things. You think about thinking about doing things. Before you even start a task, your brain has already run 14 simulations of everything that could go wrong. What if I fail? What if it is not good enough? What if people judge me? What if I waste my time? What if I am not talented enough? What if I start and realize I hate it? And after running all 14 simulations, your brain reaches its conclusion. It is safer not to start. So you do not. And another day passes, and another dream gathers dust. Kaizen short-circuits this entire process. Because when the action is tiny, when it is just open the document, just put on your workout shoes, just write one sentence, there is nothing to overthink. The stakes are so low that your brain cannot build a case against it. You cannot be afraid of failure when the task takes 60 seconds. You cannot worry about perfection when the goal is a single push-up. The Japanese understand something profound about human psychology. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. Most people think they need to figure everything out before they can start. They think they need the perfect plan, the perfect conditions, the perfect moment. But Kaizen teaches us the opposite. Start first. Clarity comes later. Start messy. Start scared. Start confused. Just start. Because once you are in motion, once you have taken that first tiny step, your brain switches from resistance mode to problem-solving mode. It stops asking, what if this goes wrong? And starts asking, what should I do next? And that shift from fear to focus, that is where real progress lives. I want you to try something right now. Think about one thing in your life that you have been putting off. One thing that has been sitting on your mental to-do list for weeks, maybe months, maybe years. Got it? Good. Now, I want you to shrink it down to the smallest possible version of itself. If you have been meaning to write a book, your task for today is to write one sentence. If you have been meaning to get in shape, your task for today is to do one push-up. If you have been meaning to learn a new skill, your task for today is to watch one 5-minute tutorial. If you have been meaning to clean your apartment, your task for today is to pick up one item and put it where it belongs. That is it. That is your entire assignment. One tiny thing. And here is my promise to you. If you actually do that one tiny thing today, you will feel something shift inside you. It will be subtle. It might be barely noticeable, but something will change. A small spark of momentum, a quiet whisper of confidence, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, you are the kind of person who follows through. And that feeling, that tiny, fragile, brand new feeling, is worth more than 1,000 motivational speeches, because it is not borrowed from someone else's words. It is yours. You earned it. You created it with your own action, however small. The Japanese have a saying that captures the heart of Kaizen perfectly. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But I want to add something to that. A journey of 1,000 miles continues with the second step, and the third, and the fourth. Not faster, not bigger, just consistent. Just showing up day after day, doing the small thing, trusting the process, and refusing to quit. Because here is the ultimate truth about Kaizen. It does not just change what you do. It changes who you believe you are. Every small action you complete is a vote for the person you want to become. Every page you read says, I am a reader. Every push-up says, I am someone who takes care of my body. Every 5 minutes of focused work says, I am someone who shows up. And over time, those votes add up. They accumulate, they compound, and one day, you will not know exactly when it happened. You will not be able to pinpoint the moment. You will look in the mirror and realize that you are no longer the person who quits. You are the person who keeps going. Not because you are motivated, not because it is easy, but because it is who you are now. Kaizen made it who you are. So remember this. You do not need a revolution. You need an evolution. You do not need to change everything tomorrow. You just need to change one tiny thing today and then do it again tomorrow and the day after that. Slowly, gently, quietly, unstoppably. That is Kaizen. That is the formula. And in the next chapter, we are going to talk about the most powerful weapon in the Kaizen arsenal. A technique so deceptively simple that most people dismiss it before they even try it. It is called the 5-minute rule, and it is going to completely change your relationship with procrastination. Chapter 3, the 5-minute rule. I want you to think about the last time you avoided doing something important, not something small like taking out the trash. I mean something that actually mattered, something connected to your goals, your growth, your future. Maybe it was studying for an exam. Maybe it was working on a business idea. Maybe it was having a difficult conversation. Maybe it was sitting down to write, or opening your laptop to apply for jobs, or going to the gym for the first time in months. Now, I want you to think about what happened in the moments right before you avoided it. Not hours before, not the night before. I mean the actual seconds before you decided not to do it. What was going on inside your head? If you are honest with yourself, and I really need you to be honest here, you will notice something interesting. You were not thinking about the task itself. You were thinking about how long the task was going to take. You were thinking about how hard it was going to be. You were thinking about how tired you would feel during it, how bored you might get, how many other things you could be doing instead. Your brain was not rejecting the task. Your brain was rejecting the imagined weight of the task, the size of it, the duration of it, the discomfort of it. And here is what is truly fascinating. In most cases, the actual task, once you finally sit down and do it, is nowhere near as bad as your brain predicted. You have experienced this 100 times. You spent 3 hours dreading a phone call that took 7 minutes. You spent an entire weekend avoiding an assignment that took 2 hours once you actually started. You put off cleaning your room for a month, and when you finally did it, it took 45 minutes, and you felt incredible afterward. The suffering was never in the doing. The suffering was always in the anticipating. This is the psychological principle that the Japanese 5-minute rule is built on. And once you understand it, truly understand it at a gut level, procrastination will never have the same power over you again. The 5-minute rule is devastatingly simple. When you do not feel like doing something, you make yourself a deal. You say, I will do this for just 5 minutes. That is it, 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, if I still do not want to continue, I have full permission to stop. No guilt, no shame, no consequences, just 5 minutes. That is the entire rule. 5 minutes, 300 seconds, the length of one song on your playlist, the time it takes to scroll through your phone without even realizing it. Now, here is why this works so brilliantly, and I want you to pay close attention, because this is not just a clever trick. It is based on how your brain actually processes resistance. Your brain has 2 modes when it comes to tasks. The first mode is what psychologists call the anticipation mode. This is the mode your brain is in before you start something. In anticipation mode, your brain does something incredibly unhelpful. It takes the worst possible version of the task and presents it as the most likely reality. It makes the task feel longer than it will be, harder than it will be, more unpleasant than it will be. Anticipation mode is a liar. It always exaggerates, always. The second mode is engagement mode. This is the mode your brain switches to once you have actually started doing something. In engagement mode, something remarkable happens. The resistance drops, the dread fades, your focus sharpens, and the task that felt like climbing a mountain 5 minutes ago suddenly feels like walking down a gentle slope. The 5-minute rule is designed to get you from anticipation mode to engagement mode as quickly and painlessly as possible. Because your brain cannot maintain resistance once you're already in motion. It is like pushing a car. The hardest part is getting it to move from a dead stop. But once the wheels are turning, once there is even the slightest bit of momentum, keeping it going takes almost no effort at all. Let me give you a concrete example of how this plays out in real life. You come home from work. You are tired. Your body is heavy. Your brain is foggy. And you know that you should sit down and work on that project you have been putting off. But every cell in your body is screaming for the couch, for your phone, for something easy and mindless and comfortable. So instead of telling yourself, I have to work on this for 2 hours, you say, 5 minutes. I am just going to open the document and look at it for 5 minutes. That is it. That is all you are committing to. So you sit down. You open the laptop. You look at the document. You read the last paragraph you wrote. And something subtle happens. You notice a sentence that could be better. You fix it. Then you think of another point you wanted to add. You type it out. Then you realize you are actually on a bit of a roll. 15 minutes pass, then 30, then an hour. And by the time you look up from the screen, you have done more work in one sitting than you have done all week. You did not need motivation. You did not need discipline. You did not need someone yelling at you or a deadline breathing down your neck. All you needed was 5 minutes. 5 minutes to get past the resistance. 5 minutes to switch your brain from anticipation mode to engagement mode. 5 minutes to prove to yourself that the task was never as bad as it felt. Now, here is an important part that I do not want you to miss. Sometimes, and this is crucial, sometimes after 5 minutes, you genuinely will not want to continue. And on those days, you stop. You close the laptop. You walk away. And you do not feel guilty about it. Because you still did 5 minutes. You still showed up. You still kept the chain unbroken. And this is where the 5-minute rule connects directly to Kaizen from the last chapter. Remember, the goal is not perfection. The goal is consistency. The goal is showing up every single day, even if some days all you can manage is the bare minimum. Because the bare minimum is infinitely more than zero. And zero is what you get when the standard is so high that anything less than a full effort feels like failure. Let me talk about something that I think will resonate with a lot of you. There is a specific type of procrastination that is incredibly common among intelligent, ambitious people. It is not the "I do not care" kind of procrastination. It is the "I care too much" kind. You put things off not because they do not matter to you, but because they matter so much that the thought of doing them imperfectly is unbearable. You do not start writing because you are afraid the writing will not be good enough. You do not start the business because you are afraid it will fail. You do not have the conversation because you are afraid of saying the wrong thing. You do not apply for the job because you are afraid of rejection. This is perfectionism wearing the mask of procrastination. And it is one of the sneakiest forms of self-sabotage that exists, because from the outside it looks like laziness, but on the inside it is actually fear. Deep, paralyzing, identity-level fear. The 5-minute rule is remarkably effective against this kind of procrastination because it removes the pressure of the outcome entirely. You are not committing to writing a masterpiece. You are committing to writing for 5 minutes. You are not committing to building a successful business. You are committing to spending 5 minutes on one small task related to the business. The quality does not matter. The result does not matter. The only thing that matters is that you showed up and put in 5 minutes. And here is what happens over time. As you accumulate these 5-minute sessions, as they stack up day after day, week after week, two things begin to change. First, the fear starts to shrink. Because every time you sit down and do the thing, even for just 5 minutes, your brain collects a piece of evidence that says, "I did it and nothing terrible happened." And the more evidence it collects, the less scary the task becomes. Second, your identity starts to shift. You stop being the person who avoids hard things and start becoming the person who faces them. Not heroically, not dramatically, just quietly, 5 minutes at a time. I want to address something else that ties into the 5-minute rule, and it is the way most of us structure our to-do lists. If you are like most people, your to-do list looks something like this. Finish the report, clean the entire house, work out, read 2 chapters, learn Spanish, meal prep for the week. Each item on that list represents hours of work. And when you look at the list as a whole, your brain does not see a plan. It sees a prison sentence. Japanese productivity thinking flips this approach on its head. Instead of listing outcomes, you list starting actions. Instead of finish the report, you write open the report document. Instead of work out, you write put on workout clothes. Instead of read 2 chapters, you write pick up the book. Do you feel the difference? The first list creates pressure. The second list creates possibility. The first list demands completion. The second list only asks for initiation. And initiation, that first 5-minute spark, is almost always enough to carry you the rest of the way. Let me tell you about a psychological phenomenon that scientists call the Zeigarnik effect. It was discovered by a Soviet psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik, and it says something incredibly useful about how your brain handles unfinished tasks. Basically, your brain is deeply uncomfortable with things that are incomplete. Once you start something, your brain creates an open loop, a mental bookmark, that keeps nudging you to go back and finish it. It is like starting a song and stopping it halfway through. Your mind keeps playing it, keeps returning to it, keeps wanting to hear the end. The 5-minute rule exploits this beautifully. When you commit to just 5 minutes, you are not just overcoming initial resistance. You're creating an open loop. You're giving your brain something incomplete. And once that loop is open, your brain will actually want to go back to the task. It will nag you about it. It will pull you toward it. The very thing that felt impossible to start now feels impossible to leave unfinished. This is not willpower. This is not discipline. This is your brain's own wiring working in your favor instead of against you. And the 5-minute rule is the key that turns that wiring on. I want to leave you with one thought before we move on. Think about all the time you have spent in your life not doing things. All the hours you have spent dreading tasks, avoiding tasks, feeling guilty about tasks, making plans to do tasks that you never followed through on. Now imagine if you had spent even a fraction of that time actually doing those tasks, just for 5 minutes each. Where would you be right now? How many books would you have read? How many skills would you have developed? How many projects would you have finished? The answer is a lot more than you think, because time spent in resistance is time wasted entirely. But time spent in action, even 5 minutes of action, compounds. It builds on itself. It creates momentum that carries you forward even when you do not feel like moving. So here is your challenge. Right now, today, pick one thing you have been avoiding. Set a timer for 5 minutes and just start. Do not think about finishing. Do not think about quality. Do not think about what comes after. Just start. And let the 5 minutes do what 5 minutes always do. Prove to you that the hardest part was never the task itself. The hardest part was always just beginning. And once you have mastered beginning, once starting feels as natural as breathing, you will be ready for what comes next. Because in the following chapter, we are going to talk about something that goes even deeper than habits, deeper than productivity, deeper than discipline. We are going to talk about purpose. We are going to talk about the Japanese concept of Ikigai, the reason you get out of bed in the morning. And I promise you, what you are about to hear might be the most important chapter in this entire audiobook. Chapter 4, Ikigai and the Power of Purpose. I need to ask you something, and I need you to sit with this question for a moment before you answer it. Do not rush past it. Do not give me the answer you think you are supposed to give. Give me the real one. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? not the surface level answer, not because my alarm goes off, or because I have to go to work, or because I have bills to pay. I mean the deep answer, the one that lives underneath all the obligations and routines and daily noise. Why are you here? What is driving you forward? What is the thing that makes your life feel like it actually means something? If you struggled to answer that, if you felt a kind of blankness, a vague discomfort, a quiet voice saying, "I honestly do not know," then this chapter might be the most important thing you hear today. Because that blankness, that uncertainty, that missing sense of direction, it is not a small problem. It is the root of almost everything you have been struggling with. The procrastination, the lack of energy, the feeling of going through the motions, the heaviness that sits on your chest when you wake up and realize you have to do it all over again. You have been calling it laziness. But it is not laziness. It is purposelessness. And there is a world of difference between the two. In Japan, there is a concept so beautiful, so profound, and so deeply woven into the culture that it does not have a direct translation in English. It is called Ikigai. And while people have tried to define it in many ways, the simplest and most powerful definition is this: Ikigai is the reason you want to wake up in the morning, not the reason you have to, the reason you want to. Feel that difference. Have to is obligation. It is pressure. It is the weight of the world pushing down on your shoulders. Want to is pull. It is magnetism. It is something inside you reaching towards something outside you because it matters, because it resonates, because it feels like yours. When you are living without Ikigai, without a clear sense of why you are doing what you are doing, every day feels like pushing a boulder uphill. You can do it. You can force yourself through it with willpower and discipline and sheer stubbornness. But it drains you. It empties you. And eventually, your body and mind rebel against it in the form of what you have been calling laziness. But when you find your Ikigai, when you connect with a reason that genuinely matters to you, something extraordinary happens. The boulder does not disappear. The hill does not flatten. But suddenly, you are not pushing anymore. You are being pulled, and being pulled requires almost no effort at all. Let me give you an example that might make this clearer. Think about two people running on a treadmill at the same speed, for the same duration, in the same gym. From the outside, they look identical. Same effort, same sweat, same physical output. But inside, their experiences are completely different. The first person is running because they think they should, because society told them they need to be thinner, or because their doctor warned them about their health, or because they feel guilty every time they skip a workout. Every minute on that treadmill feels like punishment. Every step is a negotiation between their body and their willpower. And the moment they step off, they feel relief. Not satisfaction, not pride, just relief that it is over. The second person is running because their daughter asked them to run a charity race together next spring. They can picture their daughter's face at the finish line. They can imagine the hug, the laughter, the shared accomplishment. Every minute on that treadmill is connected to something bigger than calories or guilt or social pressure. It is connected to love, to family, to a moment they want to create. And because of that connection, the same physical act that felt like torture for the first person feels like progress for the second. Same treadmill, same speed, same time. Completely different experience. The only variable that changed was the why. That is Ikigai. That is the power of purpose. It does not change what you do. It changes how it feels to do it. And when something feels meaningful, when it is connected to a reason that resonates deep in your chest, you do not need anyone to push you. You do not need motivational videos at 3 in the morning. You do not need productivity hacks or accountability partners or rewards and punishments. You just need to remember why. Now, I want to clear up a common misconception because I think a lot of people hear the word purpose and immediately feel overwhelmed. They think purpose has to be something grand, something world-changing, something that belongs on a TED Talk stage or in a biography. They think they need to cure a disease or build a billion-dollar company or save the rainforest in order to have a real purpose. That is not what Ikigai is. Ikigai does not have to be dramatic. It does not have to be impressive. It does not have to make other people gasp in admiration. Your Ikigai can be as quiet and personal as wanting to give your children a better life than you had. It can be as simple as wanting to master a craft that brings you joy. It can be the desire to be the kind of person your younger self needed. It can be the wish to create something, anything, that did not exist before you made it. The size of your purpose does not matter. The sincerity of it does. A purpose that genuinely moves you, even if it is invisible to the rest of the world, will carry you further than a grandiose goal that sounds impressive but leaves your heart cold. Let me talk about something that I see happening to so many people, and it breaks my heart every time. I call it borrowed purpose syndrome. It works like this. You look around at what other people are chasing: money, status, followers, titles, possessions, and because everyone else seems to want those things, you assume you should want them too. So you set goals around things that were never truly yours. You chase promotions you do not actually care about. You build a lifestyle that looks good on social media, but feels empty in your apartment at midnight. You spend years climbing a ladder, only to arrive at the top and realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. And then you wonder why you feel lazy, why you cannot summon the energy to keep going, why every morning feels heavier than the last. You are not lazy. You are exhausted from living someone else's purpose. You are drained from chasing a version of success that your soul never signed up for. And the solution is not to push harder. The solution is to stop, look inward, and ask yourself the question that Japanese culture considers the most important question a human being can ask. What is my Ikigai? Let me help you start finding it, because Ikigai is not something you discover in a single dramatic moment. It is not a lightning bolt. It is more like a sunrise. It reveals itself gradually, one shade of light at a time, if you are willing to sit still and watch for it. Here are some questions that can point you in the right direction, and I want you to actually sit with these. Do not just read them and move on. Let them settle into you. Let them work on you, even if the answers do not come immediately. What would you do if nobody was watching, if there were no social media, no audience, no one to impress? What would you spend your time on? Not because it was profitable or prestigious, but because it made you feel alive. What breaks your heart? What injustice? What suffering? What problem in the world makes you feel something deep and urgent and personal? Because often Your purpose is hidden inside your pain. The thing that hurts you most is often the thing you were meant to heal, in yourself, in others, or in the world. What did you love before the world told you what to love? When you were a child, before grades and careers and expectations entered the picture, what did you gravitate toward naturally? What could you do for hours without getting bored? That child is still inside you, and they remember what the adult version of you has been trained to forget. What would you regret not doing? Imagine yourself at the very end of your life, looking back at everything you did and everything you did not do. What would haunt you? What would make you say, I wish I had at least tried? That regret, that imagined future sorrow, is your compass pointing directly toward your Ikigai. Now, I want to make an important distinction that Japanese culture draws very clearly, and it is the difference between a goal and a purpose. Because most people confuse the two, and that confusion keeps them stuck. A goal is something you want to achieve. A purpose is the reason you want to achieve it. A goal says, I want to earn more money. A purpose says, I want to earn more money so my mother never has to work another day in her life. A goal says, I want to get in shape. A purpose says, I want to get in shape so I can play with my kids without losing my breath. A goal says, I want to write a book. A purpose says, I want to write a book because there is a story inside me that someone out there needs to hear. Do you see how different those feel? The goal alone is flat. It is a destination on a map with no emotional charge. But the purpose, the why behind the what, that is the fuel. That is the fire. That is the thing that gets you out of bed on the mornings when every part of you wants to stay under the covers. And here is the crucial part. When you have a strong enough purpose, the obstacles do not disappear, but they shrink. They become manageable. They become part of the journey rather than roadblocks on it. Because when you know why you are climbing, the steepness of the hill stops being a reason to quit and starts being proof that what you are reaching for actually matters. Let me share one more idea with you before we close this chapter, and it is something that I think about often. There is an old story about two workers building a wall. A traveler walks by and asks the first worker, "What are you doing?" The worker looks up, exhausted and resentful, and says, "I am stacking bricks. What does it look like?" The traveler walks a little further and asks the second worker the same question. The second worker looks up, and even though his hands are just as rough and his back is just as tired, there is something different in his eyes. He says, "I am building a cathedral." Same bricks, same wall, same aching muscles, but one man was stacking bricks and the other was building something sacred. And that difference, the presence or absence of meaning, determined everything. It determined how tired they felt, how motivated they were, how long they could keep going, how they felt about themselves at the end of the day. You are building something right now. With every decision you make, every habit you keep, every morning you choose to get up, you are building something. The question is, do you know what it is? Do you know what your cathedral looks like? Because the moment you figure that out, the moment your daily bricks connect to a bigger vision, everything changes. The weight lifts, the fog clears, and what used to feel like grinding obligation starts to feel like meaningful progress. That is Ikigai. That is the Japanese secret that no productivity hack, No morning routine, no discipline strategy can replace. You can have the perfect system. You can have the perfect habits. You can have the perfect schedule. But without a reason, without a deep, personal, soul-level reason for doing what you do, all of those systems will eventually crumble under the weight of the question your heart keeps asking. But why? Find your why. Protect it. Return to it every morning. Write it on your mirror if you have to. Tattoo it on your brain. Because your why is not just motivation, it is medicine. It is the antidote to laziness, the procrastination, the emptiness, and the exhaustion that have been following you around for years. And in the next chapter, we are going to take everything you have learned so far, the systems, the small steps, the 5-minute starts, the deep purpose, and turn it all into a practical, day-by-day challenge designed to rewire your habits and transform the way you move through your life. It is called the Anti-Laziness Challenge, and if you follow it, it will not just change what you do, it will change who you are. Chapter 5. The Anti-Laziness Challenge. All right, we need to have an honest conversation right now. Just you and me. You have made it to Chapter 5. You have learned about how the Japanese view laziness differently. You have discovered the Kaizen formula for small continuous improvement. You have understood the 5-minute rule and how it dismantles procrastination. You have explored Ikigai and the transformative power of purpose. And if you are like most people, you are feeling something right now. A spark, a flicker of hope, a quiet excitement that maybe, just maybe, this time things could actually be different. But here is the part where I have to be real with you. That spark? It has an expiration date, and it is shorter than you think. You have felt this spark before. You felt it after the last motivational video you watched. You felt it after the last self-help book you read. You felt it after the last late-night conversation that lit a fire under you, and every single time that spark faded. Not because you are weak, not because you are incapable, but because a spark without a system is just a brief flash of light in an otherwise dark room. It illuminates everything for a second, and then it is gone. This chapter is about making sure that does not happen this time. This chapter is about turning the spark into a flame, and the flame into a fire that keeps burning long after the excitement of this moment wears off. Because the Japanese do not trust motivation. They do not build their lives around feelings of inspiration. They build their lives around systems. Quiet, unglamorous, daily systems that work whether you feel like it or not. And that is exactly what we are going to build together right now. Let me start by telling you why most people fail at building new habits. Because understanding the failure is just as important as understanding the solution. When most people decide to change their lives, they do something that feels right, but is actually catastrophic. They try to change everything at once. They wake up on a Monday morning and declare war on their entire existence. New diet, new workout plan, new sleep schedule, new morning routine, new evening routine. No more junk food, no more social media, no more procrastination, no more laziness, starting right now, forever. And for a few days, it works. The adrenaline of the new beginning carries them. They ride the wave of enthusiasm like a surfer catching the perfect swell. But here is what they do not realize. That wave always breaks. Always. There has never been a wave in the history of the ocean that did not eventually crash into the shore. And when the wave of enthusiasm breaks, when the excitement fades and all that is left is the cold, repetitive reality of doing the hard thing day after day, they collapse. They do not just slip back to their old habits, they crash harder than where they started because now they have fresh evidence that change is impossible for them. I do not want that for you. I refuse to let that happen to you. So we are going to do this differently. We are going to do this the Japanese way. The Japanese way is not dramatic. It is not cinematic. There is no montage music playing in the background. It is quiet. It is small. It is almost boring. And it works better than anything else on the planet. Here is the framework. It is built on 3 pillars, and each pillar is non-negotiable. Remove one, and the whole thing falls apart. Keep all 3, and you become genuinely unstoppable. The first pillar is what I call the anchor habit. This is the one habit. Not 5, not 10, not a whole lifestyle overhaul. Just one single habit that you commit to doing every single day, no matter what. And it has to be small, embarrassingly small, so small that when you tell someone about it, they might laugh. So small that on your worst day, on the day when everything goes wrong and you have 0 energy and 0 motivation and the entire world feels like it is sitting on your shoulders, even on that day, you can still do it. Maybe it is 5 minutes of reading. Maybe it is 10 push-ups. Maybe it is writing 3 sentences in a journal. Maybe it is 5 minutes of sitting in silence before your day begins. Whatever it is, it needs to pass what I call the flu test. If you had the flu, fever, body aches, can barely lift your head off the pillow, could you still do it? If the answer is yes, you have found your anchor habit. If the answer is no, make it smaller. Why just one habit? Because your willpower is not infinite. It is a resource like the battery on your phone. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every new behavior you force yourself to adopt, each one drains a little more of that battery. And when you try to install 15 new habits at once, your battery dies by noon and you spend the rest of the day running on empty, making the same old choices you have always made. One habit. That is it. Master that one. Let it become as automatic as breathing. Let it become part of who you are, not just something you do. And then, only then, add the next one. This is how the Japanese build discipline. Not with explosions, but with patience. Not with revolution, but with evolution. Brick by brick, day by day. The second pillar is the morning reset. And I want to be clear about something. This is not some elaborate 2-hour morning routine that requires you to wake up at 4 in the morning and meditate on a mountain. This is something far simpler and far more powerful. The morning reset is about the first 10 minutes of your day. That is it. 10 minutes. Because those first 10 minutes set the tone for everything that follows. If your first 10 minutes are spent grabbing your phone, scrolling through notifications, checking social media, and absorbing other people's priorities, then you have just handed the steering wheel of your day to the entire internet. Your brain is now reactive. It is responding to other people's emergencies, other people's opinions, other people's lives. And by the time you put the phone down, your mental energy is already scattered in a dozen different directions. The Japanese morning reset looks different. You wake up. You drink a glass of water. Not coffee, not tea, just water. because your body has been dehydrated for hours, and your brain cannot function properly without hydration. Then you sit for a few minutes, not meditating, not doing anything spiritual or complicated, just sitting, breathing, letting your mind settle like dust in a room after someone has stopped moving. And during those quiet minutes, you ask yourself one question. What is the single most important thing I can do today? Not the 10 most important things, not everything on your to-do list. One thing. The one thing that, if you accomplished it, would make today feel like a win regardless of what else happens. You identify that one thing, and you put it at the top of your day. Before the emails, before the meetings, before the distractions, before the world gets a chance to rearrange your priorities. That is the morning reset. Water, silence, one priority. It takes less time than making breakfast, and it will transform the trajectory of your entire day. The third pillar is what the Japanese call continuous self-honesty, and it is the one most people skip because it is the most uncomfortable. This pillar is about tracking, not in an obsessive, measure every calorie way, but in a simple, honest, look yourself in the mirror way. At the end of each day, you ask yourself 2 questions. Just 2. Did I do my anchor habit today? And did I work on my one most important thing? That is the entire tracking system. 2 yes or no questions. No spreadsheets, no apps, no complicated journals. Just a moment of honest reflection before you close your eyes. And here is why this matters so much. When you track your behavior, even in the simplest possible way, you create accountability. Not accountability to a coach or a partner or a social media audience, accountability to yourself, which is the only kind that truly lasts. Because here is a truth that took me a long time to understand. The relationship you have with yourself is built on trust, just like any other relationship. When you make a promise to a friend and you keep it, that friend trusts you more. When you make a promise to a friend and you break it, that trust erodes. The same thing happens internally. Every time you tell yourself you're going to do something and you actually do it, your self-trust grows. Every time you break a promise to yourself, it shrinks. And self-trust, real, earned, battle-tested self-trust, is the foundation of everything. Confidence is not built by positive affirmations in the mirror. Confidence is built by evidence, by a track record of keeping your word to yourself, by looking back at the last 30 days and seeing an unbroken chain of small promises kept. That is what the daily check-in creates, not guilt, not pressure, just an honest relationship with yourself that gets stronger every single day. Now let me talk about something that will inevitably happen on this journey, and I want to prepare you for it right now, so that when it hits, you are not blindsided. I am talking about the dip. The dip is that period, usually somewhere between day 7 and day 21, where the initial excitement has completely worn off, but the new habit has not yet become automatic. It is the no man's land of habit formation. The enthusiasm is gone, the results are not visible yet, and every fiber of your being is screaming, "This is not working. Why am I even bothering? I should just go back to the way things were." Every single person who has ever tried to build a new habit has hit the dip. Every single one. The difference between the people who succeed and the people who do not is simply this. The people who succeed expected the dip. They knew it was coming. They did not interpret it as failure. They interpreted it as a necessary stage of the process, like the ugly, awkward middle phase of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. When you hit the dip, and you will hit the dip, I want you to remember three things. First, the dip is temporary. It does not last forever, even though it feels like it will. Second, the dip is a sign of progress, not failure. If you were not changing, there would be nothing to resist. The resistance itself is evidence that something inside you is shifting. And third, the dip is where most people quit, which means getting through it puts you ahead of almost everyone else who has ever tried. So when the dip comes, do not panic. Do not question everything. Do not throw away 2 weeks of progress because day 15 felt hard. Just do your anchor habit. Just do your 5 minutes. Just answer your 2 questions at the end of the day. Keep it small, keep it simple, and keep going. I want to talk about one more thing before we close this chapter, and it is something that might surprise you. It is about celebration. We are so conditioned to focus on what we have not done, what we have not achieved, what is still wrong, that we completely forget to acknowledge what we have done right. And this is a critical mistake because your brain learns through reward. When you do something and feel good about it afterward, your brain tags that behavior as worth repeating. When you do something and immediately start criticizing yourself for not doing more, your brain tags that behavior as painful, and painful behaviors get avoided. So I want you to start celebrating your small wins, and I mean actively celebrating them, not in a throw a party kind of way, but in a quiet, internal, deeply personal kind of way. When you complete your anchor habit, take a moment to acknowledge it. Say to yourself, out loud if you can, I showed up today. I kept my word. I am building something. Feel it. Let the pride of that small moment settle into your bones. Because here is what I know about you, even though we have never met. You are incredibly hard on yourself. You hold yourself to impossible standards, and then you punish yourself when you fall short. You give yourself 0 credit for the progress you have made and 100% of the blame for the progress you have not. And that internal harshness is not making you stronger. It is making you exhausted. It is making you want to quit. The Japanese approach is different. It says, honor the small steps, respect the process, trust the compound effect. A tiny improvement repeated daily becomes a massive transformation over time. You do not have to see the cathedral yet. You just have to lay today's brick and trust that the architecture will reveal itself. So here is your anti-laziness challenge, distilled to its essence. 1 anchor habit, done daily, no matter what. A 10-minute morning reset to start your day with clarity. 2 honest questions at the end of each night. And the willingness to keep going when the dip arrives. That is the system. Simple enough to start today. Powerful enough to change your life. And in our final chapter, we are going to talk about the last piece of the puzzle, the one that ties everything together and makes it all sustainable for the long term. We are going to talk about the Zanshin Mindset, the Japanese art of total presence and focus. And once you master this, you will not just be fighting laziness. You will be living with a clarity and intensity that most people never experience. Chapter 6, the Zanshin Mindset. I want you to try something with me right now. Wherever you are, sitting, standing, lying down, walking, I want you to pause for just a moment and notice something. Notice where your mind is, not where your body is. Your body is here. Your body is present. Your ears are hearing my words. But where is your mind? Is it here with me? Fully here? Or is it already somewhere else? Is a part of it thinking about what you need to do later today? Is a corner of it replaying a conversation from yesterday? Is a sliver of it wondering what notifications are waiting on your phone right now? Is a piece of it worrying about something that has not happened yet and may never happen? If your mind is scattered, if it is in 3 or 4 places at once instead of right here in this moment, then you are experiencing something that the Japanese consider one of the greatest silent enemies of human potential. Not laziness, not lack of motivation, not even procrastination. Something quieter, something sneakier, something that steals your life in such small increments that you do not even realize it is happening until years have passed and you look back wondering where all the time went. It is the absence of presence, and it is epidemic. In Japan, there is a concept that comes from the martial arts tradition, from the world of swordsmanship, archery, and hand-to-hand combat. But it applies to every single area of human life. It is called Zanshin, and while the literal translation is something like remaining mind or lingering awareness, the real meaning is far more profound than any translation can capture. Zanshin is the practice of total, complete, unwavering presence. It is the art of being exactly where you are, doing exactly what you are doing, with every ounce of your attention focused on this moment and nothing else. Not the moment before, not the moment after. This one, right here, right now. In Japanese archery, a practice called Kyudo, Zanshin refers to the moment after the arrow has been released. Most people think the important part is the aim, the draw, the release. But in Kyudo, the masters teach that the most revealing moment is what happens after. Does the archer immediately drop their form and look away, distracted by whether the arrow hit the target? Or do they maintain their posture, their focus, their complete presence even after the action is over? The archer who maintains Zanshin is not just focused. They are fully alive in that moment. They are not leaking attention. They are not half here and half somewhere else. They are complete. And that completeness, that total presence, is what separates mastery from mediocrity in every area of life. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds beautiful, but what does Japanese archery have to do with my life? I am not shooting arrows. I am trying to get through my Tuesday. Everything. It has everything to do with your Tuesday, because the reason your Tuesdays feel so exhausting, so unfulfilling, so strangely empty, even though you were technically busy for 16 hours. The reason for all of that is the same thing. You were not present for any of it. Let me describe a day that I suspect you know very well. You wake up and immediately reach for your phone. Before your feet even touch the floor, your brain has already absorbed 15 pieces of information. Messages, notifications, news headlines, social media updates that have nothing to do with your life, your goals, or your priorities. Your mind is now fragmented before the day has even begun. You get ready for work, but you are not really getting ready. You are thinking about an email you need to send. You eat breakfast, but you are not really eating. You are scrolling through your phone with one hand and lifting a spoon with the other. You commute to work, but you are not really commuting. You are lost in a podcast or a playlist or an anxious rehearsal of a meeting that is 3 hours away. You arrive at work and sit down at your desk. You open your laptop, and for the next 8 hours, you do a remarkable thing. You work on 17 different things simultaneously while completing almost none of them. You start writing an email, then check a notification. You return to the email, then remember something you needed to look up. You start looking it up, then get pulled into a conversation. You return to your desk, stare at the screen, and realize you have forgotten what you were doing before the conversation. And this cycle, start, interrupt, forget, restart, repeats itself dozens of times throughout the day. By the time evening arrives, you are exhausted, genuinely, deeply, bone-level exhausted. But here is the strange part. You cannot point to a single thing you accomplished that day. You were busy for every minute of it. You never stopped moving. But you also never fully arrived anywhere. You spent the entire day in transit between tasks, between thoughts, between moments, without ever fully inhabiting any of them. That is what life without Zanshin looks like. And I am telling you right now, it is one of the biggest reasons you feel the way you feel. The tiredness, the dissatisfaction, the vague sense that life is passing you by, even though you are technically showing up every day. It is not because you are doing too little. It is because you are paying attention to too much. Your attention is spread so thin across so many things that none of them get enough of you to actually matter. The Japanese understood something centuries ago that modern neuroscience is only now confirming. Your attention is not just a resource. It is the resource. It is the single most valuable thing you possess, more valuable than time, because time without attention is just empty hours. More valuable than money, because money without attention gets wasted on things that do not matter. More valuable than talent, because talent without attention never gets developed. Where your attention goes, your life goes. That is not a metaphor. That is a literal neurological fact. The things you pay attention to are the things that grow. The things you ignore are the things that wither. And if you spend your attention on notifications, social media feeds, other people's dramas, and an endless stream of digital noise, then those are the things that will grow in your life. And your goals, your relationships, your personal growth, and your inner peace are the things that will wither. Zanshin teaches you to guard your attention the way a warrior guards their life. Because in a very real sense, your attention is your life. The quality of your days is not determined by how much you do. It is determined by how present you are for what you do. Let me give you a practical example of what Zanshin looks like in everyday life, because I do not want this to stay in the realm of philosophy. I want you to feel what it is like. Imagine you are eating dinner tonight. In your normal mode, the mode most of us operate in, you would eat dinner while watching something on your phone or your laptop. You would barely taste the food. You would barely notice when you are full. The meal would be over before you even realized it had begun, and you would feel vaguely unsatisfied afterward, even though your stomach is full. Now imagine eating that same dinner with Zanshin. You sit down. You put the phone away, not on a table face down, not on silent, away. You look at the food in front of you. You notice the colors, the textures, the steam rising off the plate. You take the first bite and you actually taste it. You chew slowly. You notice the flavors, the temperature, the way it feels in your mouth. You are not thinking about tomorrow. You are not replaying today. You are just here, eating, experiencing this one simple act with your full attention. The meal is the same, the food is the same, the calories are the same, but the experience is completely different. One leaves you empty and restless. The other leaves you satisfied and calm. The only variable that changed was the quality of your attention. Now multiply that across your entire life. Imagine working with that level of presence. Imagine having conversations with that level of presence. Imagine exercising, reading, creating, resting, all with that level of full, undivided attention. That is what Zanshin offers. Not more hours in the day, not more productivity hacks, just more life in the hours you already have. Now, I want to be honest with you about something. Practicing Zanshin in the modern world is incredibly difficult. And the reason it is difficult has a name: your phone. Your smartphone is the single greatest attention-fracturing device ever created in human history. It is designed by some of the smartest engineers and psychologists on the planet to pull your attention away from whatever you are doing and redirect it toward a screen. Every notification, every vibration, every red badge on an app icon is a carefully engineered interruption designed to exploit your brain's natural curiosity and hijack your focus. I am not telling you to throw your phone away. That is not realistic and it is not necessary. But I am telling you that if you want to practice Zanshin, if you want to reclaim your attention and experience your life at full volume instead of through a fog, you need to start making intentional decisions about when your phone has access to you instead of the other way around. Some practical steps. When you are working on something important, put your phone in another room, not on your desk, not in your pocket, in another room. The physical distance creates a friction that your brain needs in order to stay focused. Studies have shown that simply having your phone visible on your desk, even if it is turned off, reduces your cognitive performance. Your brain is spending energy resisting the urge to check it, and that energy is being stolen from whatever you are supposed to be doing. When you are having a conversation with someone you care about, put the phone away. Look at them. Listen to them. Be with them, not half with them and half with the internet. Fully with them. You will be amazed at how different your relationships feel when the people in your life sense that they have your complete attention. It is one of the rarest gifts you can give another human being in the modern world, and it costs you nothing except the willingness to be present. When you are resting, actually rest. Do not lie on the couch scrolling through your phone and call it relaxation. That is not rest. That is stimulation disguised as rest. Your brain is still processing information, still reacting, still consuming. Real rest is stillness. Real rest is silence. Real rest is giving your mind permission to do absolutely nothing for a little while. And when you learn to rest with Zanshin, with full presence and intention, you will find that 20 minutes of real rest gives you more energy than 3 hours of phone scrolling ever could. I want to leave you with one more thought about Zanshin before we move to the conclusion of this audiobook. And it is something that I believe with every part of me. The quality of your life is not measured by what you achieve. It is measured by what you experience. And you cannot experience anything, not joy, not love, not beauty, not gratitude, not the simple pleasure of being alive on a Tuesday afternoon if you are not present for it. You can achieve every goal on your list. You can build the career, earn the money, buy the house, collect all the accomplishments. But if you were not present for any of it, if you spent the entire journey lost in your phone, lost in your worries, lost in the next thing instead of the current thing, then what did you actually have? You had a resume. You had a highlight reel. But you did not have a life, not a felt life, not an experienced life, not a life that, at the very end, you could look back on and say, I was really there, I felt it, I lived it. Zanshin is not about being more productive, although it will make you more productive. It is not about being more disciplined, although it will make you more disciplined. Zanshin is about being more alive, fully, completely, unapologetically alive in every moment, in every conversation, in every small, ordinary, unrepeatable day that makes up the incredible, improbable miracle of your existence. So today, I am not going to ask you to overhaul your attention. I'm not going to ask you to become a Zen monk or delete all your social media or meditate for an hour. I am just going to ask you to try one thing. Pick one activity today, just one, and do it with total presence. Maybe it is your morning coffee. Maybe it is a walk around the block. Maybe it is a conversation with someone you love. Whatever it is, give it all of your attention, all of it, and notice how different it feels. Notice how much richer, how much deeper, how much more real that moment becomes when you are actually in it instead of somewhere else. That is Zanshin. That is the final piece of the Japanese Anti-Laziness Formula. Not just doing the right things, but being fully present while you do them. Because presence is not just a productivity tool, it is the gateway to a life that actually feels like yours. And now, as we move into the conclusion, I want to bring everything together, every concept, every technique, every insight from this entire journey, and leave you with something you can carry with you long after this audiobook is over. Conclusion. The person you are becoming. We have been on quite a journey together, you and I. And before I say anything else, I want to acknowledge something about you, something that most people will never say to you because they do not see it. But I see it, and I need you to hear it. You stayed. You stayed through 6 full chapters. You stayed through the hard truths and the uncomfortable questions and the moments where something I said hit a little too close to home. You stayed even when a part of you wanted to close this and go do something easier, something more comfortable, something that did not ask you to look at yourself this honestly. You stayed. And that, right there, is proof that you are not the person you have been telling yourself you are. A lazy person does not stay. A lazy person does not seek out something like this. A lazy person does not listen to an entire audiobook about destroying laziness, taking mental notes, feeling things shift inside their chest, quietly deciding that something needs to change. That is not laziness. That is hunger. That is the deepest, most honest kind of ambition. The kind that does not show off, does not announce itself on social media, does not need applause. It just quietly, stubbornly refuses to give up. I see that in you, and I need you to start seeing it in yourself. Now, let me bring everything together, because over the course of this audiobook, we have covered a lot of ground, And I want to make sure the full picture is crystal clear in your mind before you walk away from this and step back into your life. We started with the most important realization of all. You are not lazy. You never were. What you have been experiencing, the procrastination, the paralysis, the inability to start, the guilt that comes after, none of that is laziness. It is a system problem. It is a direction problem. It is a clarity problem, and problems have solutions. Character flaws do not. The moment you stop seeing yourself as fundamentally broken and start seeing yourself as someone with a broken system, everything changes. Because systems can be rebuilt, systems can be redesigned, systems can be fixed, and that is exactly what we have been doing together. In Chapter 1, we explored why Japanese culture views laziness completely differently than the rest of the world. We learned that the Japanese do not blame the individual. They examine the system. We learned that what looks like laziness from the outside is almost always confusion, overwhelm, or a lack of clear direction on the inside. And we learned the critical difference between rest and avoidance, between recharging your battery and hiding from your life. The key takeaway: stop calling yourself lazy. Start asking, what part of my system needs to change? In Chapter 2, we dove into Kaizen, the Japanese art of continuous incremental improvement. We learned that your brain is designed to resist sudden, dramatic change, and that the way to work with your brain instead of against it is to make the change so small that it slips under the radar of your resistance. One page, one push-up, one sentence, one tiny step that is so easy it feels almost laughable. But that compounds day after day into something extraordinary. The key takeaway: you do not need a revolution. You need an evolution. Make the start so small that saying no is harder than saying yes. In Chapter 3, we explored the 5-minute rule, the Japanese technique for dismantling procrastination at its root. We learned that the suffering of a task is almost never in the doing. It is in the anticipating. We learned about the two modes of your brain: anticipation mode, which exaggerates difficulty, and engagement mode, which reduces it. And we learned that the 5-minute rule is the bridge between those two modes. 5 minutes. That is all it takes to break the spell of procrastination and activate the momentum that carries you forward. The key takeaway: you do not have to commit to finishing. You just have to commit to starting. 5 minutes. That is the only promise you need to make. In Chapter 4, we went deep into Ikigai, the Japanese concept of purpose that goes beyond goals, beyond achievements, beyond the superficial markers of success that society has taught you to chase. We learned that laziness often is not laziness at all. It is purposelessness. It is the exhaustion that comes from climbing a ladder that is leaning against the wrong wall. And we learned that when you connect your daily actions to a reason that genuinely matters to you, when you find your cathedral, the energy you have been searching for shows up on its own. The key takeaway: before you ask, "What should I do?" ask, "Why am I doing this?" Find a reason that makes your heart beat faster, and the discipline will follow. In Chapter 5, we built the Anti-Laziness Challenge, a practical 3-pillar system for creating habits that last. The anchor habit: one small, non-negotiable daily action that passes the flu test. The morning reset: 10 minutes of water, silence, and one clear priority. The daily check-in: 2 honest questions before bed that build an unbreakable relationship of trust with yourself. And we talked about the dip, that inevitable stretch of difficulty between enthusiasm and automation, and how expecting it, rather than being ambushed by it, is the difference between people who stick and people who quit. The key takeaway: do not trust motivation. Build a system so simple that you can follow it on your worst day. And when the dip comes, do not panic. Just keep laying your brick. And in Chapter 6, we explored Zanshin, the Japanese art of total presence and undivided attention. We learned that your attention is not just a resource, it is the resource, the most valuable thing you own. And we learned that in a world designed to fracture your attention into 1,000 tiny pieces, the ability to be fully present, to be right here, right now, with everything you have, is not just a productivity skill. It is a survival skill. It is the difference between a life that feels rich and full and yours, and a life that feels like it happened to someone else while you were busy staring at a screen. The key takeaway: guard your attention like your life depends on it, because in every way that matters, it does. Now, here's where I want to get personal with you one more time. I know what is going to happen after this audiobook ends. I know because I have been where you are. The audio will stop. The silence will settle in. And for a moment, a beautiful, fragile, powerful moment, you will feel different. You will feel clear. You will feel like something has shifted inside you, like a door has opened that was locked for a very long time. And then life will start again. Your phone will buzz. Someone will need something from you. A deadline will press in. A distraction will appear. And that feeling, that clarity, that fire, that quiet determination will start to fade. Not all at once, slowly, like the warmth leaving a room after someone opens a window. This is the most dangerous moment. Not because the feeling faded, feelings always fade, but because most people interpret the fading of the feeling as proof that nothing has really changed. They think, see, it was just another motivational high. I am right back where I started. And so they give up. They close the door that just opened. They go back to the old patterns, the old stories, the old version of themselves, and nothing changes. I am asking you, I am begging you, do not let that happen. Not this time. Because here is what I know that you might not know yet. Change does not feel like change while it is happening. It does not come with trumpets and fireworks and a sudden, dramatic before and after moment. Change feels like doubt. Change feels like discomfort. Change feels like doing something small and unglamorous and wondering whether it even matters. Change feels like reading one page when you want to read 100. Like doing 5 push-ups when you want to do 50. Like sitting in silence for 3 minutes when the world is screaming for your attention. Change feels ordinary. That is its disguise. And most people miss it because they are looking for something extraordinary. So when tomorrow morning comes and your alarm goes off and your bed feels warm and the world feels cold and every part of you wants to hit snooze and go back to sleep, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember how you felt right here, right now, listening to these words. Not because I want you to hold on to the feeling. Feelings fade, and that is okay. But because I want you to hold on to the decision that you made somewhere during this audiobook, that things are going to be different, that you deserve better, that you are capable of more, that the story you have been telling yourself, "I am just lazy," is a lie, and you are done believing it. That decision is not a feeling, it is a commitment, and commitments do not need to feel good to be honored. They just need to be kept. So here's what I want you to do. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when the timing is right. Right now, today. Before this day is over, choose your anchor habit, just one. Make it small, make it pass the flu test, and do it today. Not perfectly, not impressively, just do it. Read 1 page, do 5 push-ups, write 3 sentences, sit in silence for 2 minutes. Whatever it is, do it. Because the first time you do it, something shifts. The very first time. It is small, it is quiet, it might feel insignificant. But it is the sound of a door opening, and once that door is open, even just a crack, the light starts coming in. And then do it again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Not because it is easy, not because it feels amazing, but because every time you do it, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming, a vote that says, "I am someone who shows up. I am someone who keeps their word. I am someone who does the small thing even when no one is watching and no one is clapping and no one would ever know if I skipped it." Those votes add up. They compound. They build an identity that no amount of self-doubt can dismantle. And one day, maybe 3 weeks from now, maybe 3 months, maybe a year, you will look in the mirror and the person looking back at you will be different. Not because they are perfect, not because they have achieved every goal, but because they are someone who does not quit, someone who does not hide, someone who, day after day after day, chose to show up for their own life. That person is not lazy. That person was never lazy. That person was just waiting for the right system. And now they have one. I want to share something with you before we part ways. You came into this audiobook thinking you had a laziness problem, but you do not. You never did. What you had was a self-belief problem, a system problem, a clarity problem, and those are fixable, all of them, every single one, not overnight, not in one heroic leap, but slowly, gently, consistently, one small step at a time. The Japanese have a saying that I want to leave you with. It is simple, it is quiet, and it holds more power than any motivational speech ever could. Nana Korobi Yaoki, fall 7 times, stand up 8. Not because you are strong, not because you are special, not because you are better than anyone else, but because standing up is choice, and you have made that choice before, more times than you can count. Every time life knocked you down, every time you failed, every time you broke a promise to yourself and felt that sickening wave of disappointment, you stood back up. Maybe not immediately, maybe not gracefully, but you stood up. You are still here, you are still trying, you are still reaching, and that relentless, stubborn, quietly heroic refusal to stay down, that is not laziness. That is the most powerful force a human being can possess. And now, with the tools and techniques and mindset you have gained from this audiobook, that force has a system to channel it, a direction to follow, a purpose to serve. You have everything you need. You had it before you pressed play. All I did was help you see it. Now go, not tomorrow. Now, take the first step, make it small, make it yours. And trust, really trust, deep in your bones, that the person you are becoming is already on their way. You were never lazy. You were just getting ready. And now you are ready. One last thing. If this audiobook changed something inside you, even something small, even a single shift in how you see yourself, then I want you to do one thing. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who lies awake at night calling themselves lazy. Someone who has given up on themselves. Someone who has forgotten that they are capable of extraordinary things. Send them this. Not because I need more listeners, but because they need to hear what you just heard. They need to know that they are not broken. They need to know that change is possible. And they need to know that it starts with something so small, so simple, and so quiet that most people walk right past it without ever realizing it was the answer they were looking for all along. A single step, a single page, a single minute, a single choice. That is where everything begins. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your trust, and thank you for giving yourself this chance. You will never know how proud I am of you for staying until the end. Most people would not have, but you did, and that tells me everything I need to know about the kind of person you really are. Now go build your life, one small, beautiful, unstoppable step at a time.